I'm introing this one, and it's dedicated to Nina, who said I'm her favourite.
Oh, you got the message.
There I did.
I don't think
I'm the favourite.
You are the best.
I'm allowed to introduce it. That's the first introduction I've done.
Yeah.
And we're doing...
And the last.
I'm the best.
Well, it's not ChatGTP, is it? Righto. It's the week that was with the week ending June the 6th.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, how are you, gentlemen?
Yes.
Yeah, very well. I think I just need a minute after you just roasted us for using your AI tools.
We got told off by Dad for using ChatGPT.
I must admit, Tom, I was a little bit, not a lot, a little bit impressed with ChatGPT with the well-won stuff.
Yeah, well.
I did think, oh, this looks a bit impressive.
Have you been playing around with it today?
No, I'm hopeless at it. I think it's a great idea, but... and
You just don't get it.
Well, no, I get it, but I don't. I think, as an old person, right? In my mind, it's cheating, and it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, in my mind, it's like, well, you send me some stuff, and I can read it and go, yeah, okay, that's pretty good. But it's not you. It's actually just what you've scraped off the internet. So my argument is, in universities where they got this big problem, right, with ChatGPT or whatever it is, right?
I love how you try to pronounce it.
Right? And my argument would be, as a teacher, I would say to them, righto, here's the subjects, and the only examination is at the end of the semester. All of you have got to come down and sit down and talk to me for half an hour about what the subject is, and I'll be able to tell whether you've actually studied it or not.
Well, just try and talk to us for half an hour about anything. Jacob will talk to you about Argo.
Yeah,
if you want.
and Telstra.
And
Solwits.
Whatever you want.
But isn't that the same as going, okay, here's $15, read this throughout the year?
Because absolutely not.
You're reading ChatGPT on the same topics.
True.
No, you're not,
In
because you're not...
seconds.
In 15 seconds, yeah.
You're not retaining the knowledge.
I'm winding him.
Like, honestly...
Jacob's got a photographic memory. Anyway.
Garbage.
Covering the week that was June 2 to 6. Steve, come on.
What a week.
Stick to
it.
Well, the bromance has ended.
But that's on Friday. On Monday, we started with Ukraine bombing Russia's nuclear fleet, right? Like, that was an unbelievable attack.
I didn't think it... I thought it was going to come, but I didn't think it was going to come so quickly.
Ugh. Look, I can tell you, every military force around the world is going WTF, right? Because that is an astounding victory for Ukraine. But now they're going to have to reason with what Putin's response will be. But it's just, because Russia has been hinting, like, oh, we might go nuclear if you push us too much. Well, Ukraine's just gone, yeah, righto. So they've wiped out 30 of their 70 planes, right, that carry strategic missiles and nuclear weapons, right, intercontinental ballistic missiles, right? So it's like an unbelievable victory.
Well, I feel like Russia have to retaliate. I just don't know to what extent.
Well, yeah, but it's a little bit like when Israel got attacked and caught off guard by Hamas on October 7, right? Yes, they'll respond. And that's understandable. But the issue is, guys, how the hell did we not see this coming? Right? That's what you have spies for and all this sort of stuff. And so Putin will be absolutely embarrassed. But the other thing is too, you imagine how many military generals are going, is this guy, is this the guy that should be leading this?
It's probably weakened him in the eyes of the other world leaders as well, because he's always been quite feared.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm just saying, it's a really serious event, and it's a long way from over because Russia will be, planning their retaliation. The argument is they'll be doing a big summer hit, so
big summer blowout.
And then, as you said, Jacob, we ended the week with pedophiles and rapists, and someone's on the Epstein list, and the other guy's going to cancel his jets.
What?
Donald Trump. So Elon Musk said Donald Trump's on the Epstein files.
Yeah, that's why they haven't been released.
Which he is.
Yeah, he's almost certainly.
Oh, of course he is.
This is not a political
No,
well, it's turned into one.
Well, no, but here's the important
Didn't
part.
Trump say he was going to release that list?
Steve will somehow turn it into...
Yes, No, Kash Patel, who's now in charge of the FBI, I think he said, I won't release it because there's too many innocent people in it or something. But, everybody knows they're on it. But here's the rub. The argument between Elon and Musk, which...
Elon and Musk.
Elon and
Trump
in a, hello, told you.
We told you so.
We told you so moment there.
True. That is the main point.
And we can say that because Tess on Instagram said we can say that.
There you go.
There you go.
So we can claim victory. But in all seriousness, Tesla dropped 14% last night. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where you're a shareholder. You imagine being a multi-millionaire shareholder of Tesla, right? And you've got the CEO of the company out there basically accusing the President of the United States of being a pedophile, then saying, if it wasn't for me, Trump wouldn't have won, then saying, Trump says, I'll cancel Elon's government contracts. So Elon fires back and says, no, I'm going to pull SpaceX's Dragon flight and stuff. So do you know what I mean? This is people, you imagine people around the world, businessmen and politicians looking at this going, what the hell is going on over there? It sounds like
something South Park would have made an episode about. Just far-fetched.
Absolutely.
Like investors, as an investor, you wouldn't touch Tesla with a 10-foot barge pole, personally, until it's settled down.
Not advice.
Not advice.
Not advice. Yeah. But,
personally.
Honestly, I have spent this week going, oh, good Lord. Maybe it just looks really, really ugly. I mean, in all seriousness, you've got the world's richest bloke and the president accusing each other of these things where you're going, now did you see what Trump said?
Well, they were Trump said the other week.
Yeah. Trump said Musk is an illegal immigrant. So, now they're threatening to deport him. I mean...
This sounds like Trump and Biden arguing about who's the better golfer. Like, it's just,
Biden wasn't arguing. It was just Trump. Right? But anyway, I mean, Lordy.
In other news, Fair Works raised the minimum wage by 3.5%.
Woohoo!
Buy an extra
Watch
cup of
out.
coffee.
I think it only impacts about 14%. I think.
Minimum wage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still in all, it still raises the bar a little bit for those who are on the minimum wage.
Yeah.
So, that's probably important.
Extra $20-$30 a week.
Yep. Counted, however, by, remember when they cut rates 0.25% a couple of weeks ago now, maybe 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
We said they would, we suspect people will save it and they won't spend it. And it appears to be the case. It appears that people have gone, if we're paying, $700 a week in the mortgage and it falls to $650, don't worry about it. Just keep paying $700. And that's what I think was always going to happen. Because if you've got a big debt, you want to pay it off as quick as possible, don't you?
Especially with the uncertainty over the last 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the Australian economy looks awful. Swinging into page 2.
Yeah. Well, quote of the week, Morgan Housel. Bad luck is easy to identify when you fail, but good luck is easy to ignore when you succeed.
Yeah, there's plenty of that around. Plenty of that.
Luck versus skill.
We teach
an
that.
episode about that.
Well, there's a lot of people at the moment who think they've got skill in certain markets, but really it's just luck. But it's really hard to explain to people, I've said this before. Who wants to say, oh, yeah, I got lucky? No one wants to do that. You want to boast about how clever you are and, how you bought in the right suburb or you bought NVIDIA, for some reason or other. You make it up, right? You just make it up. Like, oh, yeah, I knew it was going to be, 100 bagger. It's like, yeah, of course you did.
Like the I told you so moment.
A little bit.
5 minutes ago.
yeah. But
it's all about the glory.
I'm on the public record,
mate,
bro.
You've been right a lot.
I was on the public record. But anyway,
right a lot. I'll give you that. Bigger picture. What are we going through here? So we've got a bunch of charts, and we don't have anything on the screen at the minute, but we will do by the time this is launched. I think Dan's going to put them up there for us. We've been concerned about the Aussie economy for a little while, but mainly because there's no spending, right?
Not much government spending.
Yeah. There's a heap of people who go on about, the government's spending lots of money, but the deficit is like minimal.
No, they should spend more.
And that's the point, right? There are lots of people going, they're spending billions on the NDIS. Okay, I get it. But, again, my argument is, so what do we just flick people with a disability? Now, I think it is a little bit rorted by, some of the categories and that sort of stuff. But the overall point is the public sector spending is falling. Corporate profits are falling. They're connected, but that's for another day. Business capex is falling, right? And why is it falling? Well, it's simple, because there's very little demand.
This is as a percentage of GDP, right?
Yeah.
And most private borrowing is going towards property, which is not contributing.
And repaying the debt.
Yeah.
Right? So, well, if we're all repaying the debt, well, who's going to hold the economy up? Well, it's got to be the government. If the private sector are going, dude, I got a $2 trillion mortgage, I need to repay it, right? Well, the government can't say, Tom, like we just said, 5 minutes ago, if you cut interest rates, people will go, yeah, that's good, but I'm still going to pay it off at the higher rate to get rid of it quicker.
I wonder if there'll be an influx in overseas money into Australia over the next few years. I saw something the other day, and I'm derailing a bit, a new iron ore mine found worth like 9 trillion or something.
Yeah. Where was that? Was that WA?
It's out in WA
Yeah,
somewhere.
WA, that's right. Yeah.
So they got me thinking, like maybe there'll be a huge influx of overseas money from the States or Europe or wherever into those mining companies, creating jobs and things like that.
Yeah.
We've already seen this with Commonwealth Bank with the stock. Because it's available on overseas exchanges now, there's a lot of overseas money influxing into that.
Yeah. I think also too, like we mentioned in the newsletter, there's going to be some subsectors of the mining sector that are going to be really key driver. Rare earths are one.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Albo's got 1.2 billion set aside to do rare earth strategies. I can tell you, I've got 20 articles at home saying, a couple of issues this week, right? China said, okay, no more rare earths for you guys, right? So the whole global auto industry has gone, Now they're talking about moving to China so they can get the rare earths. Well, you can see what Donald Trump will say. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead, move to China. You're not going to be sending any of those cars over to the United States. Oh, and by the way, there's a few other things we won't let you do either. So this week has been a real, bit
of a turning point.
Well, yeah, because it's like I say, it's obvious they are not going back, right? So let's please stop with the let's all be friends. All they're doing is working out where their own pain points are and what they've got to do to get around it. Yeah. Right? And as I say, it's serious. It's really, really serious. So, but Australia will probably be a beneficiary because we've got lots of rare earths, we've got lots of space, what you're going to see is you're going to see government steamroll a lot of people. Number one will be
greenies and things.
It will be the environmental movement. That mine shouldn't go there. Yeah, right. Thanks. Shut up. Yeah. Get lost. We need these rare earths because we need to build military weapons.
Yeah, we're way behind.
Absolutely.
We need to figure out how to process this stuff.
Absolutely.
Or who can do it for us in the meantime if China are hostile.
Well, whether it's morally right or wrong, what we're saying is it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can't fight a war without weapons. Right? You can't have an industrial revolution without robots or AI or semiconductors, right? The US has written reports on this. I haven't got through it all, but there's reports out saying, listen, guys, we've been talking to you about this for a decade and you ain't been listening. And Europe's been doing the same thing, right? Because they were sending it all to China, right? Because it was cheap and dirty. Hey, win-win.
Yeah.
Great idea. Let the Chinese pollute their rivers. Who cares? We're getting the cheap iPhones. That's over. right? That's really over.
No one's really talking about, what is it, net zero or whatever it's called.
Yeah, net zero.
2050.
Yeah, 2050.
That's gone totally off the boil
well,
now.
Pipe dream, that one.
Yeah.
So how does this affect investing and decisions?
Well, because I think as I say, there's a couple of things. One is you're going to get a CapEx explosion, right? If you look at what the United States wants to do, you've got to remember they've spent 40 years deindustrializing, right? So you guys might be a little bit too young, but they hollowed out US manufacturing, and all of those towns that were, the Ford factory was in Vermont, right, Virginia or something, and then they went, righto, well, we're giving that the flick. We're moving it to China, or, we're going to do this or that. And so there's a lot of old industrial sites that are just laying dormant. But my point is now what they're saying is, listen, we need to restart all this. And it's like, okay, Bob, well, that's going to take a little bit of time.
And it's going to take a lot of resources.
Absolutely.
A lot of steel, a lot of all
but
the
it's
stuff.
also, you think, Tom,
A lot of all the stuff.
A lot of all the stuff. Energy's cheap.
Yeah.
well, that's part of the thing with the US, right? They've now got unlimited energy with gas and stuff. So they look at that and say, if you imagine if you said, okay, we are going to just do a supply chain for the military, right? So you think about that. It's even down to we need special type of clothing. Okay, well, we got to do it in-house. Okay, well, we need a factory that does, special fabrics for the military and all this sort of stuff. Right, okay, we'll bring them in. And to do that, we need a chemical factory to make the raw chemicals to put into the steel. Oh, okay, so we need chemicals. Right, yep, okay. We haven't got enough capacity. Okay, and to kick all that off, we need to double the grid in electricity. Oh, Jesus, okay, how long's that going to take? That's what I'm talking about. It's going to be a really, really rough episode because they've got to take all, I was there when we globalised, right? I was only about 20, but the pain that people went through when they lost their jobs in the factories and all that sort of stuff, like they wiped out towns, all sorts of stuff, right? But this time now they're going to have to redo all that again. Right, and that's why I say.
But that's not just in the US, right? That will be in other countries too.
Yeah.
We've hollowed out.
100%.
Yes. But this is where it gets perverse, Jacob, because what you're doing is saying China can build about 90 million cars. The global demand is about 50. Right? But they've got capacity. This is exactly what Japan did, right? It's mercantilism. Right, the Japanese and the Germans, right, said, we'll just build as much capacity and that'll wipe out the opposition, right? And that's what China's done with EVs. All the money that they were sending into the property sector has now stopped and they've sent it into the manufacturing sector. So EVs have absolutely exploded because they become really cheap, right? They dump all the steel because companies in America go, guys, I can buy it in China for $10 a kilo and you want to sell it to me for 75. It's like, guys, I'm going to go to China every day of the week.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where it's become a problem because individually it makes sense to get it from China. But at a community level or a country level, it's damaging because it hollows out the industries.
Yeah. And as we found out, risk.
Yes. Well, that's why I say this is going to impact investors because there's going to be all these twists and turns about tariffs and, rare earth supplies. Well, which mines are close? Well, that one's no good. This one's got heavy rare earths. Well, that's good, but, we can't send them here or we've got to send them there. That's why I think Trump is sitting down talking to the allies first. Right, England, Australia, India, Japan, South Korea. See, Japan today said, we'll give you guys a hand on the rare earths, right, because they've got some capacity to do that. And that's where we may have some bargaining chips, right, where we can say, oh, and this is why I've said before, America will say, righto, Jacob, you in Australia, you do the mining, right? Righto, let's work out what you got there. Righto, now I want you guys to send that to Vietnam, and they'll do that part of the processing, right? Then when you finished it there, send it on to the Japanese, they'll refine it, and then they'll send it back to us, and we'll build, smartphones or bombs and that sort of stuff.
And then redistribute it. So they're basically just everyone's got new friends.
Well, yeah, what we've done is we've divided the world up, right? You've got China, Russia, Pakistan, Iran, and North Korea, and probably a smattering of others, and they're going to be the quote unquote the enemy of the United States, Australia, England, Canada, Mexico, fair bit of Southeast Asia,
Parts
Japan,
of Europe.
Yeah, Europe is the one at the moment where lots of leaders are going, "What the hell are you doing over there?" Right? They don't know Europe.
They're just pissing into the wind.
Well, they're trying to be friends with China, and like we said last week, they're trying to talk to the Chinese. The Chinese are wanting to hollow out their industry, and then at the same time, the Germans want to stop Russia advancing, and Russia gets stuff from China. It's like, you Europeans, you got to pick a side and get on with it, right? Yeah. But there's 27 of them. They all hate each other. And,
well, exactly. We'll be there forever. So you've got an order of events here it ends with Ukraine strikes Russia, but it starts with Trump warns Putin is playing with fire in Ukraine, and then Defense Secretary urges military buildup over imminent Chinese threat, and then bang.
So the broadly, in politics, if you want to create a crisis, you have to start gearing people up, right? We talk about priming, right? The markets, the financial markets prime you, right? Hey, everything's going great. You guys got to get into stocks, right? That's priming you. What they're doing is priming us to say there's going to be a war, right? So China came out. Now, Hegseth came out and said there's an imminent Chinese threat, right? Remember last week, Albo said, well, listen, we'll determine our defence policy, because Hegseth said to Australia, you guys are spending 2% of GDP. It should be 3.5 on military, right? Albo says, dude, we'll look after ourselves down here, right? What happens on Monday? On Monday, we come out and say to China, guys, why the big military build-up, right? Now, they come back and say, there's all these threats or whatever, right? But what does that mean? That gives us, we're going to have to military up here.
We need to do it now.
Right? We're going to have to spend 3.5% of GDP because China's doing a military build-up, right? Bingo. There you go. You've got your 3.5%, right? The Germans are going to 5, right? The POMs are gone, the UK, they're going to 3.5, right? So suddenly Trump is getting what he wants, which is more military spending. So
because he's reduced.
Well, he's trying. No, they're still supplying NATO,
right?
But the argument is, the American argument is, NATO is a little bit obsolete for America, not for Europe. But the Americans are saying, listen, we need to deal with China. Russia's not a threat anymore. So listen, you guys, we got this thing NATO. We're spending heaps of dosh over there, so you guys do that because we need to focus on China.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So, but what I'm doing here is Trump said to Putin, you're playing with fire. Then a couple of days later, you get the Ukraine attack on Russia, right? Now, the argument is, the discussion is, did America sanction the Ukrainians, right? So did Zelensky ring Trump and say, listen, dude, we're going to be bombing the Russian strategic area. It's going to be a shit show, right? Trump went, okay, all right, go ahead. We're with you. Or did Zelensky not tell Trump anything?
Just got AWOL.
And therefore Trump can say, I didn't know about it. But then that makes Trump look bad.
He probably said he didn't know about it anyway.
Yeah, chances are he knew about it. But.
Well, no, because see, then people would go, well, you're the president. Why didn't you know about it? Do you know what I mean? So Trump would like to say, yeah, I know, I know and see all. But he's trying to deal with Putin And then at the same time, Putin would be saying, did you know this was going to happen? Like, there's all these bloody back games going on. But all I'm saying is all of this is ramping up military spending.
Yeah.
Right? You would be an idiot as a politician to go forward and say, listen, I think we're just spending too much on military.
Just going to reduce this one.
Right,
On the brink.
Yeah, it's just, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's good. It's good for defence stocks.
Right? Well, it's good for defence industries. South Australia, shipbuilding, I think, is in WA. The uranium industry's going gangbusters. We've got lots of uranium. Right? I think we've got the third biggest stockpile in the world. Right? So there's all of these things, right?
And it's not a flash in the pan either, right? It's like a 5-10 year.
Oh, mate, we're talking a decade or two. This is why I say to you, when we globalized, it took 20 years to get everything in place till China fell in 2000. Right? Well, we're not going to be waking up and having a different world it's not going to be the new world in the new normal in 5 years.
No.
Like,
There's
you just can't build
to it.
factories that quickly anymore.
No.
Right? And that's why I say it's important for investors, because you haven't had to deal with this stuff before, right? It was just, pick quality companies. Well, no, it depends what they're doing now, right? Because if we've got limited capital, we're going to support, rare earths rather than, iron ore or something like that, right?
But I mean, old man Buffett's seen it before, and he still picks quality companies.
Yeah, but he's held them for a long time. But don't forget, he just sold a lot of Apple recently.
Yeah, true.
Right? And one of the arguments is that Apple's going to be in a world of pain, right?
Oh.
It's mainly located in China.
Not just Apple, right? Like, it's just a perfect storm that makes, like, if there was ever a time I didn't want to invest in tech, it's specifically now. Like, if I zoom out, like, I was just then got distracted, going back over TradingView, you look at Tesla, over 20% down for the week, like we mentioned earlier. Last week we spoke about NVIDIA in the last couple of months. It's up a lot. It went from $86 on April 7, well up to $141 in such a short amount of time.
Little jump.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it last week, multi-trillion-dollar valuations.
Yep.
We're seeing those big swings in volatility now. And we also mentioned last week, right, margin debt down $90 billion in the last 3 months.
Yeah, falling.
So you kind of look at it, you go, margin debt's falling. These companies are crazy. Buffett's selling out of Apple, 20% swings in a week. We've already been talking about volatility all year, like in all markets, realistically.
I think if you have a look at that, lessons from history, there's a nice little chart there. Technology wins, investors lose.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just answering
that's
my daughter who's writing to me.
1826 to 1920 British Railway Index. So that what this is saying is railway was the technology. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, and it was.
Yeah.
Right?
Game changer.
Man, they got this new thing that hauls, hundreds of pieces of boxes and stuff. Wow, we can supply whole towns that are at the back of Booga Booga.
Don't have to take the camel anymore.
So it went from 100 to 400 throughout 1820 to 1840, and then obviously bubble popped. People realised that they could use other means of transport or wherever else trucks came around.
Slowly caught up to fair value, i.e. stock fell from the insane highs.
Yeah.
But it's still a good company. Just a lot of people paid too much.
That's why I'm saying if you have a look, we've got a chart, a little snippet there from Charlie Bellillo, right? The PE ratio, Tesla, 185. Please bear in mind the average is 15, right, for mature companies, right? So Tesla, 185, Netflix, 57, NVIDIA, 44, Microsoft, 36, Amazon, 33, Apple, 31, the S&P's at 27, Meta's at 26, and the only one that looks remotely reasonable is Google on 19.
But the crazy thing is, after looking at Tesla, the others look cheap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but Google's been maybe not as high as Tesla, but it's been up there. And I think a lot of people have forgotten about it as an investment, or Alphabet. because of ChatGPT and all sorts of new AI innovations.
Yeah.
Nvidia's kind of taken over as well.
Google's had a rough time in the courts too,
Have
with
they?
the search engine and stuff. Am I right there? I think I am. Yeah. And Apple's had a rough time in the courts with the App Store.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're the things you got to look at because they just give you a little bit of a hint that things might be changing for tech that's been dominant for like 20 years, right? And, look at Donald Trump, right? He's having a blue with the tech dude, Elon Musk, right? Peter Thiel is in there, right? The guy from Planeteer and stuff. So I just think it's I might be wrong, but man, it just feels like it's been a hell of a week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a time. We're on the topic of tech. There's a time to buy it, and it's not when there's 20% swings. To your point, Tom, it feels like a frothy kind of top of the market sign as well.
Yeah, even I think I was reading before. Like this is Friday night, right? Well, I was just reading before that. We said, Tesla fell 14%, and apparently it's bounced back. I haven't had a look at it, to be quite honest. But,
it's up 5. I think it's up 5.
Yeah, but, one of the things you see at the top is just consistent bounce backs. Mm-hmm. But then it gets to a point where something happens and it just doesn't bounce back, right?
Like whipsaws on the way down.
Yeah.
So it feels like you're having a good time, but it's actually heading in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Long term. Yeah. What's the lesson of the week this week? We've got a lot more on Putin, Russia subsidizing mortgages.
Less about Putin, I think, right? But just talking about, you've posted articles there, Steve. 2019, Putin offers mortgage benefits and tax incentives to support large families in Russia, basically giving them discounted mortgages to incentivize home ownership.
Yep.
Then 5 years later, Vladimir Putin created a housing bubble. Prices have risen, almost 200% in Russia's biggest cities over the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. He's ending subsidized mortgages because he even started to worry that, prices were inflating too much. Sounds familiar.
Sounds awfully familiar.
Well, here's why I've been saying in that time. Well, okay, what's one thing for Australia, right? The argument is immigration.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, so we're getting a flood of immigrants and that's putting house prices up. Okay. During this time, Putin offered them in 2019, right? The Russian population went from 146 million to 144. So in other words, they lost.
Went down during the time of incentives.
Right? Now, Russia ends subsidised mortgages, right? Hello, Australia. Leaving a housing bubble and inequality behind. This is what we've been talking about.
It was due to the incentivized lending rather than more people.
Exactly, because if the argument was, Steve, there's more people, it's like, okay, well, this place is losing people, i.e., well, that would mean you need probably less houses. Why would you invest? I'll tell you why you invest, because you get a subsidised investment.
Mm. And the people with the cash invest, like what we've got
It's
here.
exactly right. So I'm just pointing out that you've got to think through a lot of those arguments. Now, I'm not saying immigration is not a problem in terms of housing in Australia, right? That would be silly. But there are always examples, or I shouldn't say always, but there are counter examples to a lot of arguments about what's going on in Australia, right? And let me tell you where it all revolves around. It all revolves around incentives.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it involves. And if the government said in Victoria, they've been, sticking it to landlords, right, with all sorts of stuff, and Victorian prices are declining. Why are they declining? Because the government's sticking it to them for the finances.
If you removed all incentives, you wouldn't have. You just wouldn't.
Do you want to buy? Exactly. If you're an investor, would you go, look, these got shit house incentives. Let's buy some houses. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
that is interesting about Russia because you get the people that say Australia is different. You can't build everywhere. We've got a housing, but Russia's massive. You can't build everywhere because of all the snow as well. Yeah, it's very similar in a way, other than it's minus 50,000 degrees most of the time.
Charlie Munger said, a really great line, right? He said, show me the incentives and I'll show you the behaviour.
Yeah.
Bingo, right? And it's absolutely, no one ever likes to talk about that stuff, right? Because it's about money, right? And we go, oh, no, it's immigration, it's land planning, and it's, COVID bounce back, and we come up with 40 excuses rather than going, man, it's just it's just great. You get all these subsidies and, cheap loans and stuff. Because money's always been thought of as dirty, right? Back to, the day of Jesus Christ, it was always like, the money launderers, what do you call them? He shooed them out of the house, i.e., disgusting people dealing with money and stuff. And no one likes to go around talking about their wealth.
It's frowned upon.
Well, yeah, that sort of thing. Except when it's going up.
We love money here at TMM.
Do you like dividends? Hot topics.
I love dividends. You know who else does? ChatGPT.
Talk to me about dividends.
Well, I was actually going to lead this in with when there's little growth, people go to what? They go to value. And dividends are a great part of value investing. So,
exactly. If you can't get a lot of capital growth, you might as well get 9%.
Yeah,
a divvy.
Exactly. So, and there's really slow moving sectors like energy, like we've spoken about a bunch of times, but you did earlier, Tom, where dividends are
great.
They're great in those
unbelievable.
Sectors. Old stable companies.
Often you get good dividends and good growth if you pick cheap companies.
Well, generally, Tom, because they're undervalued in their capital.
Yeah.
Growth,
so the dividends per share is attractive.
Yeah, the dividend's attractive, and the dividend's attractive because in relation to the price that you pay for the dividend,
correct,
it's low.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of value investors, well, I shouldn't say a lot, there is a brand of value investing that buys cheap, then when the company hits what they think is fair value, they sell. So in other words, they don't wait for it to get overvalued. Right, they just go, oh, it's worth 15 cents. I bought it for 10. It goes to 15. They go, right, that's it, sell.
Yeah.
And then they go and find another, 10-cent stock that's worth 15.
Yeah. Oh, well, you can go down the stock route, or you can go down the ETF route and find
absolutely
slow-moving sectors that pay really well as well. So I think we've been in a 20, 25 and 30-year market where it's been growth, and I just think it's worth talking about some more value.
Yeah, well, we're moving out of growth. One of our arguments from the new normal is the growth period's over, right? Because and remember, if we've got excess capacity, well, how are you going to grow? Well, you're not, right? Because if you can make 90 million cars and there's a market for 50, well, you're not going to grow, are you? So this is where value comes back into its own.
Yeah.
Right? Because you look at NVIDIA at, 35 times sales and go, okay, it's going to grow, but not that much. I'll go and buy, an energy stock that's yielding 8.
Yeah, and you can sit on it, go get on with your day job and
absolutely.
And get a decent dividend. And that kind of leads into ETFs versus shares. We get this a lot on socials where people are kind of asking, well, should I stock pick, which is what everyone gets into this game going, I'm going to pick these stocks and I'm going to become a zillionaire.
Yep.
And most people end up with a portfolio just full of ETFs and they rebalance it because they realize
crappy stocks.
Yeah. Well, they realize that picking stocks is really damn hard. And the odds of making a career out of it and winning long term is so low.
It's unbelievable. If you said as a financial advisor, if the government said, okay, you have to mandate your own returns over the last, 5 or 10 years or whatever, and you had to show people a fact sheet which said, here's the chances of you picking a successful stock portfolio over 40 years, right? Not, I picked a couple of winners, but over 40 years. The studies have been done by a guy called Bessenbinder, right? And the chances of picking them are next to zero, right? But interestingly, there is one sector that outperforms over a long-term basis.
What's that?
Energy. It's a constant, right? It's a constant. But again, it's, the point is going, do I really think I'm going to pick 300 stocks over the next 30 years and they're going to be successful? Right? The odds are awful.
Something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, why would you? You can put 100 companies in an ETF. 5 of them could go bust and 95 could just do all right.
Yeah, I think it always comes down to people want the really big returns, and not too many people realise that you can get that with ETFs.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Tom, because most people think, I've got to pick stocks to get, they get seduced by Apple and Nvidia and all that stuff. But it's like, dude, it's a 1 in 1,000 chance. I mean, please. You can, and if you buy, we'll look at our portfolios with ETFs. If you buy them cheap, can I do another I told you so?
Go on. I'll give you one more.
Am I allowed?
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Poland, we talked about Poland at the start of the year.
Yeah.
It's up about 30%. All right, not advice.
That's it, not
Definitely
advice.
not. Just showing off.
My advice is we close this down so I can go and have a glass
If any
of red
listener
wine.
owns a T-shirt making factory or something, can you make an I told you so shirt?
Steve told me.
Steve told me so, yeah. Anyway, until next week,
Make Steve do it
gentlemen.
again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, folks.
As always, remember, we don't provide financial advice.